So this first one we're just going to look at as a same thing we did yesterday. We've got a graph here, and we're finding all of these properties. So amplitude, how do I find the amplitude?
Max minus min divided by 10.
Okay, nice. So what is it for this one? Ooh, tricky. This might be one, absolutely you can do it with, like by doing the math. This one might be a bit easier to do by just kind of counting squares. I don't know. What do you think? What does anybody notice about this one? I said something yesterday that like you have to explicitly do. It's maybe even a good first thing to do. John? Put in your zero line. That's not what I was thinking, but absolutely. If it's sine, that should be easy, especially if it's only one cycle. Remember I talked about this. If it continues on like that, it can be harder to find the zero line, but like sine starts and ends on the zero line. That's a terrible line, but that's where the zero line is. So that's easy to do. What else do you have to do? That can be really helpful that some people don't do until they've spent like a few minutes confused. Count out the scale. Explicitly look and see what is the scale here. And what is it? Pardon? Yeah, or a third, right? So it's going up by thirds. When I look at 1, it's broken up into 3 parts. So from here, I'm going up 1/3, 2/3. And I'm going down 1/3, 2/3. So my amplitude is 2/3. Phase shift. And again, I have to understand the scale, the X scale this time, in order to get the phase shift. So what do? Well, there's a couple of ways you can do it. And this is where you start. This is where you get value for graphing, which we start tomorrow. Okay, when you start doing this kind of thing. And some people might find this hard. But that's the point, is if it's hard, then you have to take some time so that it starts to click for you. If it looks easy when I do it, well, you got to go back and do it a bunch of times until it starts to make sense. This is pi by 2. What would half of pi by 2 be? Thank you, pi by 4. You multiply the denominator by 2. And that's the one that we need because that's where it starts. But then half of that would be pi by 8. So this is pi by 8. That's what we're counting our squares by. And this would be pi by 4, or 2 pi by 8. Right? Check this out. 1 pi by 8, 2 pi by 8, which is 2 pi by 8. But if I reduce that, that's pi over 4. 3 pi by 8, 4 pi by 8, which is a half, pi by 2. 5 pi by 8, 6 pi by 8, 7 pi by 8, 8 pi by 8, a whole pi. See how that makes sense? And I would be doing that in my head, counting pies, counting in fractions. I think it's a really, really useful thing and a really valuable, an effective way of getting these scales and making sense of them and graphing and doing this kind of work. Okay, so we've got our scale. It's counting by pi by 8s. And we've got our phase shift. We went left pi by 4. So my phase shift is left pi by 4. Oh, I'm not doing these in the right order. It doesn't matter. Period. So that's from pi by 4, negative pi by 4, to what's this? Okay, let's try it again. This is 4 pi by 4. This is 5 pi by 4. This is 6 pi by 8, sorry, not by 4. 6 pi by 8. When I reduce that, I get 3 pi by 4. So now, and you should be using the by 8, geez. See, I'm rushing too much. 3 pi by 4. And you should be thinking about both the reduced one, but then also the 6 pi by 8 where you're counting by pi by 8. So you should sort of be like going back and forth between the two. 3 pi by 4, not that it matters for this question, but hey, that's a special triangles angle, so like that might be useful. I don't know, depending on what you're doing. So it starts at pi by 4 and ends at 3 pi by 4. And how do we find the period? It's the stop minus the start. So 3 pi by 4 minus negative pi by 4. Does anybody know what that gives us? Thank you. Okay, then I did the phase shift vertical translation. Kind of already done that, right? We see that our 0 line is at 2. It starts at 0. So that's up 2. Is everybody okay? Am I going too fast here? I'm kind of rushing, I know, because of the quiz, but are we good? Feeling okay? Following along? The domain is, it doesn't ask us to do the domain, but we've kind of already done it, right? We've done the start and the stop, so that would be the domain if you were asked to do it. What's the range? Always start with the lower one, so go find the minimum. One and a third, right? Which is 4 over 3. So 4/3 is less than or equal to y is less than or equal to 2 2/3. And what is that as a, like an improper fraction? 8 over 3. Sounds good. 9 over 3 would be 3 wholes, so nice. And then interval of increase. So when I start here, am I increasing or decreasing? Increasing to there. And remember, we always go left to right. We write it as x's, but we're thinking about how the y's are changing. So at this point, the y's start getting smaller and smaller and smaller until they're at a minimum value, and then they get bigger again. But when we're talking intervals, we're talking about x values. So that's what I write. And the mistake people make is they say it went from 2 up to 8/3. That's not how you write it. You don't talk about what the y's did. You just talk about the x's where the y's are increasing. So from 2 less than or equal to x less than 0 or negative. Oh, sorry, I just made that mistake. Oh my goodness. It's negative pi by 4. Huh? How many people copied that down? Whoops. To 0. And then pi by to 3 pi by 4. Those are the intervals of increase. That's where the graph is increasing. It's going up here, then it's going, I'll do this. It's going up, then down, and back up. Turns out this is really important. This is one of the properties of functions that we care about in all different kinds of functions. And then this one fills in the gap. Where is it decreasing? From 0 less than x less than pi by 2. Oh, boy. We good? Any questions? We're going to do more practice of this, and we're going to do graphing, and then we're going to do more practice of all of it over the next few days. Okay, we are going to do the following for Cosecant X. But before we do that, we are going to have to graph Cosecant X, because I don't think you've ever seen it before. Have you ever seen the graph of Cosecant X? Didn't think so. So go to your, oh, am I in the wrong order? Go to your